This video is one part of my longer full video for the Halo Season 2 review. The link will be in the description if you'd rather watch the full video. Thanks.
Meta issues, which are probably my least favorite thing to discuss, but they impact the show, so I feel like they need to be talked about. So let's just get right into the most obvious one, which is the lore and the fans. The creators of the show look down on both Halo and the fans as not real art because it's based on a video game. And this is why they don't think the original books and games are good enough to just adapt the stories from. Pablo Schreiber straight up said, if you want Master Chief to wear his helmet, the show isn't for you. They don't care about the fans and routinely spit in their face. Unfortunately, they heavily rely on you filling in the gaps of their shitty story with your own knowledge of the lore. I don't believe for a second that anyone who had never heard of Halo and then just watched this show actually has any idea what's going on or how any of it makes sense. On top of this, and this is what I find disrespectful, is that they want to exploit the brand to tell their own stories and then use a shitload of surface level references without actually understanding anything behind the reference. So just a quick list of some of the references. You have the rubble, the name Reth, sword base, which is just a dark hallway, obviously Halo itself, Soren, even the way that Halo is used, random stuff like putting an original Xbox in the background of a thrift shop, the Arbiter, High Charity. The list goes on and on, but the point is clear. They want to exploit nostalgia to tell their own story. I've seen people speculate that they wanted to do Mass Effect but couldn't. I actually think they had like 3 or 4 original intellectual properties and then just merged them all into this story and called it Halo. For me, the show reads like John's arc is some kind of Mission Impossible inspired spy revenge thriller. Quan seems like some sort of YA rebellion fantasy story. Soren and Laera, maybe something similar like Taken. And they just slapped all these stories together. And I don't want to go too hard on the people that like the show, but it is annoying hearing defenses like, no one wants a one-to-one adaptation of the game, that's just boring. Of course he's going to take his helmet off, he's human. The show wouldn't reach a broader audience if they just used the story that already existed. And then whatever other things that people say to defend this shit. I wish that they would just be honest and say, it's Halo, I want to like it, and not try to rationalize it as these decisions needed to be made. The reality is, 90% of people will have no clue about the Halo story, and you can keep the base story and then just expand on it with your own original touches and characters and whatever. Right or wrong, people consider TV and movies to be the most important type of art and kind of the only legitimate art, and they look down on video games and animation. Like, these kind of defenses are coming from the same people that will say the regular story wouldn't appeal to a broader audience. The reason that you call the story Halo is because people know the name. People know the name Halo because the story has mass appeal. The Fall of Reach book, the Flood book, or even something like Contact Harvest or the Cole Protocol would appeal to a wide audience because they're good stories. Even Halo Infinite, which is far from Halo's peak, sold 81 million copies. Halo has mass appeal. 99.9% of fans would be okay with him taking the helmet off if it made sense and if the show was good. You'll see a lot of people dismiss criticism and be like, oh, you just wanted the video game. You're mad he took his helmet off, as if that's all there is to it. When he takes his helmet off because an insurrectionist is pointing a gun in his face, or when he's taking it off in a war zone, yeah, people are going to call it stupid. It's also a bit hard to take the he needs to take his helmet off thing seriously when we just had The Mandalorian probably be the most popular Disney Star Wars thing since they bought Star Wars. This also ignores that we have plenty of movies that don't even have a human protagonist, like WALL-E or The Iron Giant. Many of people's favorite Mass Effect characters are aliens. A lot of the defenses that I see for this show are just bullshit by people who want to like it because they love the Halo brand. And that's fine if that's what they want to do. Personally, I wish that these people would stop eating shit with a smile on their face and demand better from these corporations.
I say that because I'm not a toilet bowl you sit on and shit on. I'm not here to eat your fucking shit. You fucking got that?
We're supposed to be the customers. We shouldn't be grateful that they took something that we love to try to extract profit from it while destroying it at the same time. And to continue this point, I'll just go ahead and say, using kind of bullshit reasons to write him out of his armor for half the season or 3/4 of the season is just spitting in the face of the fans. The biggest complaints from the fans last season were that Quan's annoying and she sucks, he had his helmet off too much, and there wasn't really that much action. So what do? Make Quan more important, take his armor completely after an episode and a half, all the way until the finale, and they kept the same amount of action, but on a far lower budget. The little speech that he gives at the end of the show, where Pablo Schreiber looks right into the camera and talks about his armor being taken from him and bent to someone else's will, seems like a message to the fans to me. Not only does it not go out of its way to try to make the fans happy, I feel like they go out of their way to shit on them. And that's the biggest and most obvious meta issue. But the next one that I want to talk about is the writers. So there was a big hubbub about, oh, there's a new showrunner and new writers, and they're really going to reset things this season. You can go online right now, any Halo forum or subreddit or whatever, and the consensus will largely be, well, I don't know if season 2 was good, but it's way better than season 1. Is it really? And did they actually change anything from their formula? I would say no. I mean, if it's better, season 1 was maybe a 2 and season 2 is a 2.5. We've got like a runny turd versus a solid turd. Way to go. I want to talk about the writers so that people understand the lack of care that went into this fucking show. So I'm using the IMDb just to go through the writers for each episode. I have episode 1 pulled up so you can see they just have writing credits listed. But the rest of the way, I'm just going to pull up the page of the writers themselves so you can see what they worked on. And obviously, if you don't believe me, you can just go to IMDb yourself, check the writers. I don't give a shit. So we can see the writing credits for episode 1. David Weiner, Kyle Killen, Stephen Kane, and Basil Lee Krelmendal. I'm sure I'm butchering that. So this is David Weiner's writing credits. 2 episodes of Halo. And then he has 9 episodes of Brave New World. Didn't know they did a TV show for it. 1 episode of Homecoming. 1 episode of Strange Angel. 2 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, 2 episodes Flesh and Bone, 2 episodes The Killing, Whisper of Fear, which was a TV movie, 2 episodes of Last Resort, and Leone, which is a screenplay. So that's his writing experience. You can think it's good, bad, whatever. Obviously, he's been a producer on a bunch of stuff. Next, we have Kyle Killen. He has credit on all 17 episodes. So for all the people trying to say, oh, it's totally different now, no. And then his other writing credits are all shit that I haven't heard of. I'm not going to go through the whole list. You can see the whole thing here. You can go look yourself. But the fact that I haven't even heard of him, I don't think is a good sign. Next, we have Stephen Kane. Also credit on all 17 Halo episodes. Again, for the people who are saying it's way different now. Now, to be fair to him, he does have better writing experience, it looks like. He got an episode of Jack Ryan, 56 episodes of The Last Ship. I haven't heard of it, but it sounds like it got a pretty full run, so that's good. Some random episodes on other shows, 17 on The Closer, pretty good. But still, all 17 on Halo. Not good for the people who are claiming shit really changed behind the scenes. And the last one for episode 1 is Basil Lee Kremendal. All 8 episodes, staff writer. Maybe staff writers aren't that important. Don't know. He's on all 8. And you know what his other credits are? None. He's just written for Halo. So before I go through the rest of the episodes, because that was just episode 1, you can see the same people are still around. They do this weird writing by committee thing where they just throw random writers episodes here and there. I have no idea how you can tell a coherent story that way. And that's how they did it. I'm not going to keep renaming the people that are on every single episode, but the 3 that are on every episode are Kyle Killen, Stephen Kane, and Basil Lee Kremendal. So you can assume those 3 for all of them. And then I'm just going to talk about the ones that are different. So for episode 2, Amadou Garba. He has credit for 2 Halo episodes. And then just kind of random credits here and there. Nothing that I see is stuff that I recognize or is particularly impressive. So again, another writer without some great resume on a couple episodes just thrown in here. Episode 3, the same writers and Marisha Mukherjee. Decent experience on a couple shows like Titans and Quantico, but again, just hopped in for 1 episode of Halo and fucked off. I just don't understand how you can expect coherent storytelling like this. I think this also plays into why the story feels so disjointed, why the tone feels so all over the place over the course of the season, while the characters feel all over the place over the course of the season. Because you're just popping in these writers and be like, hey, come join us for an episode. And then taking their input. Episode 4, arguably the most important episode of the season. It's the same 3 guys, plus Tom Hemmings. This is his 1 writing credit. His other 2 are 2 shorts 10 years ago. He's got a bunch of credits as an editor, great, but the most important episode of the show, and they bring on a writer who's essentially never written anything. They might as well have brought me in. Episode 5 is one of the episodes that only has the main 3 that have credits on all 8, and it's arguably the worst episode of the season. So way to go there. Good job, guys. Episode 6, we have the main 3 plus Sarah McCarran. She's got 4 writing credits. 1 is a short in 2012. She's got 2 episodes from some show called Made for Love, and then 10 episodes for a TV miniseries called Station 11. Again, which I haven't heard of. I would say maybe she's young and up and coming, except for that short 12 years ago. And then she's another one that they just popped her in for 1 episode of Halo, and then she went back to doing whatever she was doing. Episode 7, arguably the 3rd most important episode of the season, behind episode 4 and 8. And it's the same 3 and the guy Amadou Garba from episode 2. This is his other credit for Halo. And then episode 8, we're back to David Weiner again, and the other 3 guys that are part of all of it. The reason I took the time to go through this is because not a single person here seems to be part of really much success at all from a writing perspective. and they had the absolute bare minimum of experience to begin with, if they have it. And then on top of that, how can you tell a coherent story with 3 guys who are part of every episode, and then the other episodes are just including random people? I'm sure there's successful shows that do this, but I feel like the best writing you get is when you have a couple people with a focused vision and just let them do their thing. Maybe the studio needs to step in and rein them in sometimes. Obviously, this happens with creatives, but it's hard for me to imagine that having a whole bunch of different writers and different combinations of writers for every episode is a good formula. And like I said, people were excited about the new showrunner, and 2 of the 3 main writers are the same as season 1. So yeah, he can film it in a way that feels slightly different tonally and more gritty and blah, 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 whatever generic term you want to throw out for making the chief a little bit edgy and dark. But really, all the core elements are still there. To me, it sounds like the first season showrunner either didn't like the bad feedback or he got scapegoated. So they just completely railroaded him, brought in someone else, and then we're like, yeah, that guy was the problem in all the marketing. And I think the fact that they kept the core together is the exact reason that both seasons have kind of the same problems. And this also touches on why they didn't abandon shitty characters and plot lines that the fans said they didn't want. So I'm not going to talk about the writers anymore. The last couple of things I want to move on to are the budget, and then culture war nonsense will be last because my least favorite thing, as always. I'm not going to show a bunch of clips for the budget or pictures because you've already seen a ton of them. But this one's funny because Riz is like smiling like, oh, look at the blind guy go while he's launching a grenade launcher. So the budget for the first season was about $100 million for production. All the fights are in broad daylight. There's a lot of aliens, a lot of CGI, a lot of vehicles. All that shit's gone this season. They took away the armor, so they didn't have to do any crazy movements. There's no grunts. Most of the action is like this. We were watching someone shoot and then just seeing muzzle flashes without seeing what they're actually shooting at. And the sets are all pretty much just dark gray hallways. And then a lot of the action is either off screen or in the fog or the dark. Here, I pulled up a new image so you can see what I'm talking about. I watched an interview partway through the season where Kiki Wolfkill actually said flat out they wanted to do more with Reach, but simply didn't have the money.
You know, the battle for Reach is still going on. As we know from canon, that actually is a very extended battle. And as much as we would have loved to spend 4 episodes on it, we couldn't afford to.
And this is pretty apparent that money was an issue for all the reasons that I just mentioned. And if the budget is the same or lower for a season 3 if it gets made, I think it's pretty safe to assume that they'll be on the actual surface of Halo for maybe part of an episode, and a bulk of it will take place in underground dark hallways. The Flood will be kind of like zombies. Maybe they'll steal some props from the Last of Us set, or they'll just travel through Halo and then blow it up in a couple episodes because they can't afford it. I could honestly see them doing that the way that the Fall of Reach was handled. And the last thing I'm going to talk about for the meta stuff is the culture war nonsense. It's my least favorite thing, so I'm going to try to keep it short. But as with many things in Hollywood right now, it seems like they made a concerted effort to put women at the forefront of this season in particular. Halsey went from villain to kind of good guy to a good mom suddenly. Chief is a total douchebag to Riz and Kai, and the show clearly thinks that both Riz and Kai are in the right. Laera just drags Soren around by the nose and yells at him repeatedly, and the show thinks that she's in the right for doing this. Quan became even more magical, more badass, more important. And if you're part of the intersectional crowd, Quan is a double win because she's both a woman and Asian. And of course, Asians are Schrodinger's minority. When they went to get into Harvard, they have white privilege. When we cast them in a show, it's diversity and Pacific Island representation or whatever bullshit. Continuing with my list, the best 2 Spartan 3s are Perez, who's also Hispanic, another win for the intersectional crowd, and the chick whose name I can't be bothered to remember. We get some nice self-insert nonsense with Miranda being smarter than her mom, who's been studying this stuff literally since before she was born. Keys telling his boss to go fuck himself because he's the evil white man. Obviously, the guy partaking in human trafficking is a white man. The woman selling off indentured servants on the rubble beats up a bald white criminal man twice her size. McKee is in charge of the Arbiter and turns him and Chief into simps, with her golden taco presumably. Kai and Laera are the ones who make big self-sacrifices, along with Keys and Vanek. Women and minorities. Obviously, we've got the ginger, body-positive, blind gay Spartan and his husband sacrificing themselves. Soren suddenly turns into the stereotype of a black father and wants Kessler to get the shit kicked out of him for the symbolism of a black kid getting beat up by police. I'm sure there's more, but you get the idea. Any one of these things you can overlook, no big deal. But when there's 20 of them or 100 of them, at some point, it's just deliberate. Some of this stuff is surface level, but some of it actually does impact the story and the world building.
And it's a shame because the Halo universe already has a ton of diversity in the way that Hollywood prefers diversity. And everyone loves a ton of the main characters, including the aliens. Everyone loves Sergeant Johnson. A lot of people like Halsey as a character. Everyone loves Cortana. A lot of people like Kelly and Linda. For the newer book readers, Veda Lopez is awesome. So there's just no need to force it. They could have kept the story intact and gotten all the representation they wanted to. Oh well, I guess. That's it for the meta stuff. Comment your thoughts on the show below, maybe on the video as well. I do my best to respond to everything that's not an insult. Like and subscribe and all that. Thanks. See ya.